Welcome to part 2 of making a dirndl. This is an exciting day because I've taken my time to pre-shrink my material and get it ironed and all ready, and it's all going to come together today as we start working on her bodice, and I can't wait to get started. This is the dress that we're going to start with today. And we're just going to show how to make the front of the bodice in this part 2, and part 3 will show how to do the back. This is the pattern that I used for the bodice for my granddaughter's dress last year. It was one piece for the entire front. It had a zipper in the middle, and I sewed some rickrack, flower trim, and piping here to attach these little hooks and some lacing. For this dress, I started with this pattern piece, and I decided right along this line that I wanted to make it into 2 separate pieces with a seam. I took my doctor's examining table paper and I laid it over my original pattern, and I made a seam line right where that line was and added seam allowance. Then I took it again and I made another seam line and added seam allowance for the other piece. So these are the 2 pieces that are going to make the side bodice. I added an extra inch of inseam here and an extra inch and a half at the bottom and made it a little wider on the shoulders. So that's our new bodice pieces. Many dirndl patterns call for a seam allowance along this line, and if you see this little purple extra piece that I have right here, if I were to sew piping here, then I would leave that seam allowance, but in this particular pattern we've removed all the seam allowance on all the neckline and armhole pieces, so this little purple extra would be gone. So if you have a pattern that calls for piping and has a seam allowance, you need to remove that if you're going to finish off the edges with double fold bias tape, and that's how I'm going to do my edges today. If you've made a dirndl before using piping, you might want to try this way because this saves a little fabric, because if you can see, when I cut mine out, this is how wide I'm cutting it, whereas if you use piping, you're going to have this extra width on all the pieces. And the other reason is I think it's a little easier to finish off the edge with double fold bias tape. All patterns come with a straight of grain line, such as you see here, and you need to follow that when you're cutting out. I'll show you an example of a dress where we did a little something different with that. Following the straight of grain might not seem like a big deal, but if you're going to do stripes, it becomes part of the design. Here you see the vertical lines with the straight of grain and the stripes going up and down, and then I have them sideways on the side seams, and it matches up right here. So take your time if you're going to do that and match your stripes up, and it's very pleasant to look at when you see everything matching up. This is going to be a lined bodice, so we're going to cut 2 of this piece of the regular bodice fabric and 2 of lining, and cut 2 of this and 2 of lining also. These are the pieces we'll have for our front bodice lining. So you can lay them all out. Instead of doing piping right here, I decided to do black rickrack, and I think that'll be kind of fun. It can be pretty challenging to get your rickrack to lay down flat, pinning it and aiming exactly right. So I decided to tape it. And so then I measured a ½ inch and make sure that when I sew it, I will sew right exactly to the right of that tape, which will give me a nice straight line, and the rickrack will be real even, and then the part that's going to show will just be a little peak sticking out. It'll look really cute. And I think that pinning is a little bit more challenging, so I decided I'll do the taping. I think it will work best if you stitch along the edge once to hold the rickrack firmly, then back stitch, turn it, and then you can stitch right down just to the right of the tape, and it'll be really nice and smooth. No puckers, and you don't have to stop and start to pull your pins out. So this looks like a good way to do it. When you get to the end, you can just sew right off and then clip it. Okay, now I've sewn the rickrack onto both pieces for the side front, and this little piece is going to sew on here. So it's really easy because I've sewn it with black thread. When I turn it over, I have this little stitching line. It'll be really easy to follow along where I'm going to do it. So I'll put this on here like this, and I'll pin it in place, and as I turn it over, I'll just sew it right on just to the inside of that little black line that I have left from the other side. Okay. Now that I've finished, I pinned the center front piece onto right sides together, and I'm ready to start stitching. I'm going to stitch right along that line. I'm going to do both sides, and then you can repeat this same step with your lining, and it's not too hard to do one and the other, just switch back and forth. Now I've finished sewing this center front piece on, and I can kind of open it up and look at what we have. Got a cute little piece of black rickrack that just peeks out around that, and I'm going to go and I'm going to iron this down, and that really helps everything look really nice. I made this ruffle before I even started working on the dress, so that when I got to that point on the bodice where I need to add the ruffle, it's already ready and won't have to switch gears, put it away, and take time to make a ruffle. So I'm going to take a look at what this looks like on the dress. If you'd like to use a ruffle, I'll show you at the end of this video where you can go and watch a video that I made showing how to make a ruffle. Okay, now that I've finished sewing the rickrack into this side seam, I had a reason for wanting to add that rickrack and instead of just and add it into a seam. That it's really nice and strong here, and I've decided to sew these little hooks on, and it'll be anchored into several layers of fabric. It'll be a good idea to make it strong. We've had some buttons that ripped out before, so this is a good way to do it. And I decided it looks better with the black ruffle showing more of a little pink peeking through. Then over here, this side has the pink with a little black showing through. I decided I like this better, so that's what I'm going to go with. And I'll sew these on later on when we're done with the whole bodice. This was fun, and now that I've seen how the ruching is going to look on the bodice, I'm seeing all my dreams kind of coming together. So join me next time for part 3, where we'll start working on the back of the dirndl, and it's all going to come together. If you go to Dirndls on a Budget Part 3, you can learn all about how to make a ruching or a ruffle for your dirndl.